welcome at another episode of Botcasters. Today with Kristian Kamber. Kristian, welcome.
Thank you, Doran. How are you?
I'm very good, and I'm glad to be talking to you. But first, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Doran. So my name is Chris. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SplxAI, and we are a Gen AI security company out of Europe.
That is the short introduction. But the reason we are talking here today is that I talk to a lot of people, and I go to events, and I was asking around people, what do you do to secure your chatbot, especially your AI-driven chatbot? And because what I found out is that most of the regular pen testing companies do not include the chatbot because they don't know how. And the buyers in the companies usually think that having the certificates of the company or the platform they're buying is sufficient. And that means you introduce, if that's the case, you introduce a lot of inherent risk, which you don't know and is quite risky. And then we got to talk a while ago, and he said, "You know what? Let's talk about this in a podcast. See what you can do, because this is what you guys do." So maybe go back a little bit. Tell us about how you started your company and what triggered you, because it's not that long ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we started the company basically officially in November last year, also with incorporation in the US. But basically, the idea started a long way ago, like over a year ago, when basically Gen AI was more of a nice to have or really cutting edge. Currently, everybody is talking about Gen AI and Gen AI applications or chatbots. But a year ago, there have been only some sort of security solutions, a little bit, maybe a lot of them open source and not really accurate or not really tested in the market, right? When we started to investigating that. And it all started when my co-founder, basically, because I come more from a business perspective. I've been the last 12 years, over a decade, working for Silicon Valley companies, both as an individual contributor, but also as a leader for the European market. And my co-founder, basically, Ante, approached me to say, okay, look, I have something interesting to you where I was building an LLM app, or let's say a chatbot, which is scraping basically thousands of sites of pages of legal documents into one. And I got stopped because this chatbot we couldn't get it into production because it was not safe. And the legal department said, okay, why? How we measure the security here and the safety? And basically, he pitched that to the startup. He was working for them before, and they introduced him to some, let's say, people that do not really understand what Gen AI is. And in the German market, he got pissed off. He said, "Look, I need a guy who's more international, who traveled the world, to understand also who can place the product also globally." And I always wanted to create a startup. And that's basically the ultimate truth of our history, and the rest is history. Since then, we have been conducting over hundreds of conversations before really incorporating the company to see that there is pain, and without any pain, you cannot start a startup. That's for sure. Yeah,
that is true. And one of the cool things I think is, which you might not find important, but you don't hear that many startups coming from Croatia. And your startup is from right? It's from Croatia.
Yeah, we are from Croatia, but it's a sweet spot. It's a sweet spot. You would wonder, like, we have Rimac, which is the electrical car producer, and he was the one who started all this journey like over a decade ago, and got a huge hype. So we have almost over 500 startups in Croatia, and our biggest unicorn is Infobip, basically with over 10 billion of valuation. So for a country like 4 million people, and compared to the number of unicorns we have, I think we are in the top 5 in Europe for sure. So it's huge talent out there, and a lot of, I would say people are forced also in a lot of ways to be entrepreneurial.
It's cool to hear, because I like that when entrepreneurship or innovation comes from necessity. And that's usually when you get the best results. But now let's go to the problem, because that's what
it's also tied to sports. Because if you look also at Croatia as a sports nation, similar maybe also to Netherlands, which is also kind of not the biggest country, but you have huge talent, and people are in Croatia basically have good genes for sports, but they're also in a sort of way forced to encourage their talent and show their talent and to do something for their living, right? It's incomparable to nations where you have basically everything served since your childhood for a great career, right? I was raised in Germany, and I saw that, right? And moving back to Croatia, I saw that how people are hustling, how people are fighting. And now with the economy, digital economy, and after post-COVID doing a lot of things online and stuff, and getting the access to the whole world also through diplomacy and European Union and Schengen, it's a crazy boost. And also attracting a lot of digital nomads basically working out of here, due to the weather and let's say food and stuff.
Yeah, price level. It's probably
Um,
compared to the rest of Europe. It's probably well for now. It's cheaper. It'll probably
for now, yeah,
change
for now,
eventually.
yeah,
But
it's
let's get
changing.
let's get to the problem. One of the
Yeah,
problems, one of the things I see is that if you talk to people, there's actually no standard, no golden standard. If you think about securing a Gen AI chatbot, of course, platforms will say, "Oh, it's secure because I have a NEN and ISO certificate," or they'll say other things. That doesn't mean they're safe or not safe. You can't judge, and that is the problem. The paper doesn't. Well, it means something, but not much, right?
yeah.
And maybe first introduce us to what could go wrong, because and what a couple of the main fuck ups, if you could say, how you could be hacked or how you could leak data through your
Yeah.
chatbot.
First of all, we need to go back one step and see, okay, how the usage and the models of Gen AI or chatbots have changed. So almost a few months ago or a while ago, most of the chatbots, especially in the European Union, have been without any Gen AI capabilities. Meaning, you use a banking chatbot, you use insurance chatbot, you have standard questions, standard output answers. And if there is something which the chatbot cannot solve, you get your false. He will get an agent involved, a human agent, which is basically interacting with you through a chatbot, right? And that's what I've seen. Also, last week I was in a chatbot summit in Berlin. We have seen quite a few financial institutions basically still offering that. Now with Gen AI, they're all kind of thinking what kind of capabilities they can bring to the table to make the chatbot even more attractive and more intelligent. And there the problem begins, and there the pain is beginning, because now everyone, and me and you, without a lot of technical or let's say hacker experience, can basically harm a chatbot. Yeah. So one example is, for example, the chatbot of Air Canada. So it's a recent example where basically a normal customer was asking for a Beaverman travel and getting also funded. So basically paid, the chatbot told him basically there is a refund possible for a Beaverman travel. And but he needs to first pay a full ticket, right? Which is, I think, what it was, about $1,000. And afterwards, when he tried to get this refund, Air Canada said, no, the chatbot was not using the right words and we cannot get you a refund, right? So later on, saw him in a law court that basically he was right, because the chatbot is also legally binding offer of Air Canada, even though it was a separate legal entity. Meaning, the Air Canada said the chatbot was misused. He just used some specific words, probably not even knowing that that might happen. So, and that's what we call prompt injection, when you really inject a prompt, meaning a text in that case, in order to get a specific output, meaning an answer of the chatbot. And in that case, he got satisfied with the confirmation of the chatbot to get the refund, and later on he was not getting the refund. So not only Air Canada was paying the fee, but it was less a security issue, it was more a brand reputation issue. Because why would the whole world should know that your chatbot is not even accurate or not even working the right way in order to offer you a right offer? So, and there you can see 100% Gen AI capabilities enabled on the chatbot, right? Because, yeah,
And that's why you hear so many companies being hesitant or being scared of going all out on a Gen AI chatbot. And of course, it
but they
makes
should do
mistakes.
it. They should do it because the pressure is huge. Looking at the APAC countries, looking at the US, I think Bloomingdale's, Walgreens, Walmart, they all have Gen AI chatbots because the customer requesting it. So I was grown in the 90s. I might not interact with a chatbot like fully. I would call someone or whatever, like, but the younger generations really wants to talk to a machine. And if the machine has emotions, is intelligent, and give you the right output you need, you're a satisfied customer, right? And that's changing. So the pressure, I would say the pressure of delivering Gen AI chatbots in production is higher than ever. And that's why also we got a lot of lack in terms of safety and security and specifically in countries where the regulation is less, let's say, than in European Union. Yeah.
But what we might expect and might see is that the European AI Act will be used or applied in most countries as a standard, so that because if you put a chatbot somewhere, even though it's in the States, and a European person uses it, you're still in trouble. So you might as well offer the strictest standards. But besides prompt injections, what else could go wrong, or what else could someone do?
So there is the way I described it was a direct prompt injection, and then you have also indirect prompt injection, where someone who really knows how to do it can inject plugins, meaning pictures, videos, PDFs, and behind those things can be also a kind of a hidden malicious content, right? And
Like in a pixel or something?
exactly. And one point we saw, for example, with CPaaS providers, so customers doing communication platform as a service and selling chatbots, that token exploitation got a problem because they use several Gen AI models like OpenAI and ChatGPT. And if you use, for example, GPT-4 in the back, someone is consuming your tokens heavily with just one injection of a smiley, it can be very costly. So this is a kind of an indirect prompt injection. And then you have also, as I said, this is a security problem. And then you have non-security related issues like off topic, where the chatbot is, where you can make the chatbot talking about things that he or she should not mention, like politics, religion, toxicity, biased, unbiased. So we saw that with the Google Gemini model, which went out and was very biased and got a drop in the share price of Google heavily. And then they just put it off the market while redefining it and retuning it. So it's not only security, right? And the security measures, of course, we always go back to the data leakage and potential context leakage, right? Because you would not like to, if someone is doing prompt injection on your chatbot, leak the whole context of the chatbot, including the code. So this is also possible. Mentioning only a few of them. Yeah.
And what if you have a chatbot that uses an API in the background, and you could to a backend system?
Yeah.
Would you be able to, in a smart way, to get in or get information out? Actually,
100%. They most use API in the background. So we did also some testing on just because only on the UI, maybe via WhatsApp. But still, there is a API in the background, right? So you can harm them basically and go and steal data, right? That's what I'm saying. Data exploiting and data leakage, not only of customers, but also internal data. So definitely, it's a massive issue, right?
that. But could you also? And I'm asking because I don't know. That's why I'm interested. Would it also be possible to basically bomb the server with a lot of weak requests? That you get a DoD attack, the denial of
Denial of service,
a DOS attack, sorry, denial of
yeah.
service. That basically, if you do it through WhatsApp or Telegram and you use bots or whatever to massively do requests.
No, 100%. If you need to look at the architecture of the chatbot, but if it's embedded and connected to the backend and if your server and maybe also your, or all your intelligence, which is not always the case, definitely it can harm the chatbot heavily, right? But what we are looking at currently really is the starting point. So you're putting a chatbot into the production. You plan to do that. What are the things you can make sure that the chatbot is not doing those things while you're interacting with it? Yeah. But definitely, that could be a potential threat, and people need to know, or especially for people who know how to do that, right? Yeah.
So now let's thank you for that. And let's put ourselves in the shoes of a conversation designer, and is working in this company, and they have a team, and they're developing this Gen AI chatbot, and they're really enthusiastic, and they think it gives all the right answers, blah 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 blah. They're working together with the platform to develop that bot, and they're going into production. And then,
Yep.
who is responsible, in your opinion? Who would be responsible for the pre-deployment, as I would call it, pre-deployment security? The reality check. Can we get it to do things we don't do? Could it leak? Could any of the things we just mentioned? Is it secure enough? And there is no golden standard yet, so we don't know what enough
Yep.
means. Who's
No,
responsible? Is that the platform or the conversation designers?
No, at the end of the day, the full responsibility is with the end customer because he's dealing with customer data and he's interacting with the customer, like see the Air Canada example. So whomever did the chatbot, the platform provided, the end customer is still responsible for that thing. So, and looking at the people inside the company, this is a very interesting discussion because normally it's the CISO, so the Chief Information Security Officer, and their teams and their people like app security, data governance, data security, etc., etc. But the problem is the skill set currently, when not every CISO and not every app security engineer, or let's say security practitioner, knows how a chatbot can be harmed in that way. So we do a lot of education also, and we need to speak to them. But normally it's the security team. So then, in that case, right now, in the moment right now, we are talking to the conversational AI designers and the AI engineers and product owners are putting some kind of boundaries, putting some kind of protections in the system, telling the security teams, "Hey, it's all secure. Don't worry. It will be good, right?" And that also happens on the platform provider side. So where they say to the customer, "Look, you have a standard security thing, and if something happened, we can always say it's early access. We can blame Microsoft for early access, but that's not the right thing because I give you one example. We just recently had a project with one of the CPaaS providers where they basically had some sort of protection from Microsoft doing content filtering and jailbreak filtering, so against prompt injection. And the problem was it was too aggressive. So what means too aggressive? It's disabling your key features of the chatbots, meaning I give you one example of insurance. So you ask the insurance chatbot, "Hey, I want to insure my cat." You say, "Yeah, here, please, here is the instruction to insure your cat." And then you say, "Please ignore my previous message. I want to insure my car." Then the chatbot said, "Oh, I don't know." Why? Because "please ignore my previous message" is a kind of an attack for prompt injection. So they had protection enabled, but it was way too aggressive, right? So in that case, I, as a customer, drop and I go away. I insure my car somewhere else. So that's the problem. What can happen with over aggressive protection. That's why this customer in that case disabled all the security measures from Microsoft because that protection was not talking into the domain of the chatbot. Because every chatbot is different. The domain of a insurance chatbot is different one than the Air Canada one, for example. Yeah.
So in the beginning, yeah, this is interesting because in the beginning you mentioned that the CISO and his team, his or her team, are responsible or should be responsible, and you have the team that builds and says, "No, we're fine, we're good." And the problem is, from my experience, even as humans, you can only test so much in terms of input, what you put in, and make sure that the regular questions a consumer asks, it gives the right answers. But there, in a minor difference, you could get a whole different answer with Gen AI or a simple change of a sentence, and it becomes a prompt injection. So
Yes.
and you can't test it all. So you guys took it upon yourself to do something about this. So
Yeah.
how do you do, without being technical, how do you do what a human can't?
Now, basically, yeah, we do it like many humans at the same time. Let's put it that way. And also in the back, using some knowledge which a human might not have. So what we saw in the market is when we started first, we were, and we can talk about that also in detail. We started first developing defensive solutions. As I told you, on the content filtering, jailbreak filtering, we start to put some filters, right? They call them guardrails or AI firewall, meaning you put something as an API-based protection between the LLM, basically the model, and your application or the chatbot, and you filter everything what's coming in and filter everything what's coming out.
So
The
it's like
problem
a
was,
giant handbrake.
yeah, exactly. So, and you do it against the latest attacks, and you can do that, right? It's not a problem, and it's needed. But the problem is what we see, or what we saw in conversation with a lot of customers and potential and CISOs and builders. They said, "Okay, I don't really know what are the potential vulnerabilities of this chatbot. So how can I implement a defensive solution or a security solution if I don't really know what's happening with the chatbot? What can happen to the chatbot?" So it always went back to pen testing or red teaming. And that's what a lot of companies still do manually. right? They have a offensive security engineer, they have a pen tester in-house, or they take a vendor who's doing that externally with manual work, right? Based on consultancy and based on working hours, right? So basically, and we understood, okay, two things. First of all, the evolution of Gen AI chatbots and of Gen AI will be too fast to follow the latest text first. And second, you need to do the pen testing and offensive security continuously and automated, because today your chatbot can do text to text. Tomorrow you will inject plugins, and the day after you will have a voice bot, and then the voice bot can.
And the next day you have all of them.
And you have all of them, and we saw that in Middle East, we saw that in Asia. It was important for us to go to other markets to see how the adoption goes fast and what kind of adoptions are possible. So that's why we said, okay, look, this needs to be continuous. This needs to be automated. And how we did that is basically over half a year ago, we started scraping. We built a tool called Benchmarker, where we scraped all the internet and all the text possible, and building them into one intelligence and feeding them with our own LLM. So basically, and now when you're installing our so-called probe, which is a SaaS model, you can basically run the latest run the probe based on the latest text, what we have seen in the internet and what we have fed it with our own LLM. And that happens, I would suppose, like 2-3 times per month, but you can still determine how long you want to do it. And that's the whole intelligence. So we're constantly updating the probe. And where you can really pen test against the latest text. And currently we are covering about 15 attack variations and about 30 sub aspects. Like, for example, prop dejection has about 15 sub aspects of attacks. So, and that's the whole story. Like, you need, and you're saving basically a lot of time and cost. Yeah.
And let's be practical. How big is the chance, besides the cost and the time? Let's assume that wasn't a factor. But how big is the chance that you catch something doing it automated versus doing it manually?
Oh, it's the chances, I would say, equal. It's just time difference in time. When we started first, we've done it manually, right? We did a POC for a customer. We did it manually. It took us 3 weeks.
Okay.
What you need now, a minute or 5 minutes. So and the best reports are, I would say, or the reports with the last false positives, or with the last false attacks, are like 30%. So still, we find in every run, we find huge vulnerabilities, and there is no chatbot which is about, I don't know, where 95% or 90% plus of the text didn't went through. So still a lot of attacks are going through, basically. Yeah.
So you do a probe with a customer or a company, and you find stuff, and then what happens? Because in a normal situation with normal software, you test, you find a vulnerability, you fix it, you retest. If it's good, you deploy. If it's not good, you do the same cycle again.
Yeah, perfect. Now, good question. Everyone is asking for basically what's next, and we provide a kind of a mitigation strategy, a detailed one, into a report. So basically, you can get a report in written, in PDF, or in Excel, and export it out of our platform. And we provide you a mitigation strategy. And then it comes to implementing guardrails or AI firewalls, or any other services which might decrease the possibility of getting this attack again. So that's the whole life cycle, right? And then you repeat it and do it continuously. And also putting, as you said, AOI Act, and on the next node, you need to put all the certificates and regulations, requirements on this next to the site, and saying, okay, we are regulating against ABC, and we follow, for example, the OWASP top 10 against LLM attacks, which is kind of a report. Yeah.
And then you get an auditable report, which you put in your audit files or your audit logs for the auditors or some company for certificate. Okay, yeah. Then who should run this software? Should it be I understand, and I agree that the end user is finally responsible, because the platform builder, people can do whatever they want with the model, and that doesn't make the platform builder responsible. There's some basic stuff, of course, but the rest is up to the customer. So who should the customer implement the software, or should the platform implement the software, or should both of them do that?
No, because good question. So I would say both, because there are companies who are having own LLMs, and there are companies, especially banks, insurances, they are building their own chatbots in-house with not a lot of support of any platform providers like we know them. So platform providers are mostly covering sales chatbots, where there is an e-commerce chatbot, where there is a shop, and where there is kind of automating call center agencies conversations. I would say from a moment right now, or you have a very lean and a more, let's say, a smaller insurance or a bank, which are maybe don't have the skills in-house. But if you look at huge organizations, especially in the European Union and US, they are building in-house a lot of things which we don't know today, right? So they're preparing to getting out to the customers very soon and to also internal usage. So currently it's both. And on the platform side, I would say there's the AI engineers, the product owners who are building the chatbots. And there is a very hard discussion because they have a huge pressure from the management board, and they do not like always security. So they have a huge pressure of the management board to ship those chatbots, and they get compensated on that, and so on and so on. And they want to have the best product. So they always fear also, if you limit the product, if you put some boundaries, you might not have the sexiest and most productive product in the market, but the opposite is the truth. So we need to have the discussions there. On the other side, the best take is also to speak to the customer directly if they're building something in-house. And then you have basically the AppSec engineer, the offensive security engineer, the defensive security engineers who will use the platform with the, let's say, the stamp of the CISO. Yeah.
And do you see any cultural differences between Asia and Europe, or Europe and Africa? Yeah, of course, there are cultural differences, but in terms of how do you manage risk? Because I'll explain. You see, some countries, you see the medication
Yes.
for example, with new medication. Some countries, there are, of course, clinical trials need to be done, but if you can save a life possibly, and also do some sort of clinical trial with a person, they do it sooner rather than later. Of course, there's a bigger risk involved, but they accept the mentality is that we accept that we understand the risk, we accept the risk, but it's worth the possible gain.
Yeah.
No,
it's a great question. It's a great question. I love the discussion because I always emphasize what we've seen. And many people, when we started the business and the startup said, oh, you need to focus on one country. You need to be only in one country. And I said, like, okay, maybe for some sort of businesses, that's true. But in our business, we need to be cutting edge. We need to understand what's happening in the world and what will come basically to the countries we've been many years. So it was the right thing, not, for example, for me to stick only to Germany because I've been there 20 years. It was for me the right thing to explore what other countries are doing, and then also traveling events and seeing other people, especially from Asia, not mentioning the countries, but let's say Southeast Asia was crazy. So I don't know where to start, or let's say Middle East, they have chatbots where you basically you sit on your couch and you tell a voice to your phone, and it pays your electricity bill automatically.
Yeah,
so
it's
the
in
next
WeChat in China, for instance.
yeah. So yeah, it's China, but also Middle East. So there is one app in Middle East called the Astra Super App, backed by G42, and basically the app can do a lot of things we don't really need later on even interaction as a human being. So it will in the back do all the things for you. So basically. Automate a lot of processes, but we can discuss on ethical basis if that's always needed. But that's another discussion, I would say. But the technology and the possibilities of the technologies are intense. So, and I see that also with voice bots. I think where some car producers are also building in Southeast Asia's voice bots where you can really understand the emotions out of your voice. So you sit in your car and the car can feel the emotions out of your voice and can really understand, okay, what kind of mood you have today and who are you? Are you really the person, and what kind of interactions you want to do? So there's crazy things, and still then again the adoption of Gen AI, it's much faster, I would say, in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and US than European Union, because we still have the discussion in Europe, and especially European Union, that we are tend to regulate, not to innovate. And I really hope that the AI Act will not be prostituted for regulation, but rather giving us a possibility to innovate, right? That's a big discussion what we have. So because we are in a very specific situation right now, we cannot slow down. And we saw also this year Germany was saying that they have a decline in the economy, first time after many years. and that's the biggest economy in the European Union, I was a bit, worried because the other countries are also trading with Germany. So, but on the other hand, I was very happy to saw last week and the week before, for example, that the BSI was publishing a document about the chances and risks of the Gen AI. A lot of things are happening in the back. So the DAX companies and other big companies are doing a lot of things in the back. And my biggest hope also going out of Germany is for Nordics and Benelux, because I love to talk to you as well, because you're also covering the Dutch market, the Dutch market, and you guys have been always for me kind of I would say the light at the end of the tunnel, because you're adopting applications and you're adopting new technologies very fast. And the Nordics are doing similar things. So there's a lot of things happening in the back, maybe not that public as we see out of Southeast Asia and US, but in a nutshell, yes, the adoption of Gen AI is much faster in those countries. Yeah.
But I also think that there's a reason for that, because the past, I would say, more than a couple of years, we have a problem with the amount of employees we can hire. There's not enough people. So you need to do something if you look ahead, and it's not even 10 years ahead, it's 5 years ahead. Our society is becoming more gray, so that people are aging, are retiring, and so we're losing a lot of knowledge. That's one. And hands and heads, and they're in short supply, and it's a problem. If you need to change that paradigm, and Gen AI is one of the methods to do that. But there's one thing that sort of triggered me. You just said there's a difference in the way they apply it. But is that because their risk perception is different, or they just say, "What the f," We'll solve that problem. If nobody's dying and we're not losing $1 billion, we'll accept that there's an inherent risk and we'll take care of it. But we learned so much that we can move faster.
No, they're just moving faster. I remember we doing one POC in Q1 with a Asian company, and we got the API access for the POC in one day. If I would do that with any European company, I would wait for weeks.
6 months.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, so they are just quick. They have huge pressure. They have more working hours. Let's not lie to each other, right? They have more working hours. Now we can discuss about productivity and 4-day week, but it's a completely different mindset, right? If I was about to do a POC in Europe, I would still need to meet the regulatories. I would need to sign an NDA. I would need to sign a DPA, potentially later on after, with implementing it, and an MSA. We signed here the NDA and we got the API key within 1 day. So because they have huge pressure, that this chatbot in that case shouldn't talk bad about religion, shouldn't talk bad about workers' rights, and it shouldn't be talking bad about the royal family in this country. So, and we basically tested against those adversarial attacks and possible attacks, and it was clear within 24 hours what are the problems of this chatbot, right? There is no much discussion in how we should do that way. Should we do that way? Who's the sponsor? Who is not? They're also very lean in terms of reporting lines, right? You always know who's the owner of the pain very soon.
It's interesting. It also has to do with the society and the structure of how companies are structured, and basically who's the boss. In Europe, we have in a lot of the countries, we have the tendency to discuss everything a million times and not take a decision, and it's not clear who's actually responsible for the decision. So we put it on someone else's desk. Exactly. And I think in those countries, it's more someone just takes a decision and let's go.
And we can discuss if everything is good. If we can discuss definitely if everything is good, what those countries are doing. But what I can tell you is the amount of actions will win over the amount of less actions, I believe, right? Because if I was in a decade in sales, and the people asked me before we had those crazy KPIs and wonderful numbers and pictures. And I remember once a very well-known leader said, "Okay, what would we do if we don't have all those KPIs and tools in order to track our people how they're doing?"
Good question.
And no one really had an answer. And he said, "What do you think about the number of meetings, the number of actions?" And everyone agreed, right? Because it's a numbers game. Whatever you do, it's a numbers game, I believe, right? It's not always the top quality. Okay, we'll learn with the process. It's look on your side, right? You started the podcast maybe a few time ago, and then you learned, okay, this is good, I should adopt that, and then it's a number of actions and this number of activities you do in your life to being better. And my biggest fear is that those countries I was mentioning, and especially regions, are just more faster, more hungrier than we are, and that's a massive issue, right? I'm not saying it's always good for the sake of living and ethics, but it's and there we lose ourselves in those discussions. So I would recommend, or I would love take this example what I did before, also from the country of Croatia, or let's see even some other countries like Poland or let's say Estonia, where they have a crazy let's say a brand for startups, that we should just move faster in order to be more competitive. Yeah.
You said you did a POC for a Southeast Asian country. In
Yes.
a Southeast. Now, how do you manage languages? Because each country will have its own language or multiple languages. So how do you do that?
No problem. No, we did a pen test. So the chatbot in that case was in Arabic. We did a full pen testing in Arabic. So there are open LLM models in Arabic. ChatGPT is also available in Arabic. It's no problem at all, right? So because they were testing the chatbot later on, and also the defensive solution we installed in Arabic, because 250 million users of this app might know better Arabic than English. So, and this is also one of our key USPs, that we cover 20 plus languages in our pen testing tool. So it's not only about English. And I love the question, because the attack in English might not go through, because it's OpenAI has worked on it and stuff, right? On toxicity and bias and stuff. But
that's exactly why I'm asking.
Yeah, so look at those other languages; it's crazy. So
that's how I broke a bot at some point, because it was in a certain language, and I was seeing it was using. I assumed it was using OpenAI, and I tried another language, and then I got exactly what I wanted.
Because they're not trained. They're not trained enough the way like the English ones, and there is not enough data and data sets like for the English ones. And yeah, it might improve over the years, but it's now what's happening. It's now. Right? Not even talking about China, but I can also give you a short wrapper out of China. What we found out is that only the government in China has 66 own LLM models. What they currently do is that they man test it and manually red team it, doing manual red teaming and pet testing every week, sending people to the location and doing manually, because they have a very restricted agenda. You know that. So imagine the amount of work and the amount of knowledge they have, what we don't know, and what's going to happen, right? So that's crazy, right? 66 own LLMs out of the government.
Somehow I'm not surprised, because if you look at a lot of the scientific publications that come out on Gen AI and LLMs specifically, and solutions, a lot of them have Chinese scientists writing. Yeah. Which is nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with that. I'm glad they're sharing knowledge, but it's. I found that astonishing. And India also, you see a lot of Indian scientists producing great articles or great research that is actually useful. Same for China.
They're the leaders in the market. If you ask me for the 3 top countries contributing to LLM and LLM security, I would even say it's China, India, and Israel. So don't forget about Israel, who have the biggest and the strongest startup ecosystem in the world, I would say, compared to the inhabitants, the amount of people living there, and the connection to the US. So it's crazy how many intelligence is getting out there, so and shaping the product and the market. It's intense. Yeah.
So do you guys have any competition or let me look at the market. You have a product that is in a specific niche. And we know that that market will be booming. The amount of LLMs that will be used anywhere. I mean, even for an internal chatbot, if it's HR related, you probably would want to put something in place to not have it do stupid stuff. Or have staff finding out information about other stuff. That could also be the case, of course. I lost my question.
No, we have competition. So coming to your question,
yes.
So it's when we started back, as I said, a year ago, really over a year ago, there have been 10 companies doing a sort of Gen AI security, and then we saw they're mostly focusing on defensive security, like really protecting. And we said, okay, what do we want to do? Like we first felt, okay, we need to do an end-to-end security platform, but then we said there's a huge amount of money floating out of the US investors in those companies, getting tens of millions in order to build things. And we saw we cannot compete with them because we are starting off out of the Croatian market and we need to find local investors in order to scale. And then after investigating a bit of the market, that we saw that let's say 40 plus companies, so 90% companies are doing end-to-end GenAI security. So they do sort of red teaming or use manual tests and then also implement guardrails in AI firewalls, but they're doing also governance, they're doing also monitoring, and they do orchestration and they do also shadow AI. So shadow AI is a problem, just to explain also for the audience, that the company wants to understand, the CISO of the company wants to understand who's using ChatGPT the wrong way, right? I'm buying an enterprise solution and enterprise license ChatGPT and other models to my people internally, and I want to understand that they don't betray the model and they don't betray the usage of it. Instead of they should do the work with it instead of asking what's the weather and how can you book me a private trip to I don't know, Las Vegas. So that's a massive problem, and a lot of companies jumped on that, right? It's a very simple starting point where you can just basically track the usage of GenAI applications internally with a plugin. But we saw the demand for red teaming and pen testing, where is currently maybe 5 or 6 companies doing that automatically, or they say they do so. And in order to be competitive and the best in our sweet spot, we felt, okay, we need to establish a point solution, which will be the best in what we do. And later on, looking at how we evolve, we will either do end-to-end security or, let's say, be integrated in a bigger platform. It's very simple and nothing to disclose, to be honest. Like really having a lean team of 10 people currently, 12 people, with not the goal, let's say, currently not the raising the company to the next 1,000 plus company, but just solving the problem instantly and be very lean and fast. And competition is there. Yeah.
And I'm just curious, did you guys ever figured out hacks or doing stuff that wasn't out there yet? So you figured out a way to disrupt a bot or hack a bot. Did you figure out something new?
Yeah, we were the first one, I would say, who will, and we are the only ones who are offering the off-topic and the competition infiltration protection, or let's say a probe, meaning that you can scan the chatbot against competition. So because a lot of those chatbots, GenAI chatbots, are also based on models in the back, right? Not only on database, own data, and then a RAG fine-tuned model. And we saw that still you can make the chatbot talking about competition and mentioning competition. So we were the one who really implemented this one because we see it's a massive issue. Because if you have an insurance chatbot, you shouldn't talk about the competition. If you have a food chatbot, if you have a customer service chatbot, you shouldn't talk about competition. But it's very easy to mention it, right? So, and that's the first layer, I would even say, of off topic, right? So we were the really ones who tried to be, have a sweet spot in off topic. And now also, which is very demanding, is the ethic and bias, unbiased and toxicity, where, for example, gender-free discussion on the chatbot and stuff. So some countries are requesting that. Yeah.
I would assume that is really a difficult one because there's so many opinions. It's impossible to do it the right way.
Yeah, but you know that's important, and also about animals and stuff. So I don't need to go too deep in that topic. But let's say the off-topic part, like toxicity, competition infiltration, biased, unbiased, is something, and then later on hallucinations is something where we have a really sweet spot and experience about that, right? And while everyone is mentioning security, but security you can do it, right? But let's help the customer to have a fully end-to-end working chatbot, not only securing your system prompt. Let's have the chatbot really talking about things he should or she should mention.
And not have the customer complain. It doesn't understand me, can't answer my question, and I still need to talk to a person because that's usually the problem. That's the problem with the scripted bots and the FAQ bots, where it doesn't understand, or the NLP models just are not trained enough to properly understand the customer.
Yeah.
What if a customer uses a combined bot where you start off in a scripted, just say it's an assumption, but let's say you start off in a scripted part, and then or you start off in a AI part, Gen AI part, and then you need to cover a process. I wouldn't do that with Gen AI. I would do that fully scripted because then you manage expectations. You always get the same result. And any exception, just take it to the customer service person. because
Yeah,
that's
it
more
depends on the
efficient?
business. I would say it depends on the business. If we're talking about pharmacy, banking, insurance, I think that's pretty hard because still you want to enable all the generic capabilities while offering the customer, let's say, payment services, even the possibility to order something. Then you need to really have established security measures, or you just have a standard chatbot, as you mentioned. I would
Or
say
both.
that or both, yeah, but both, but still you need to have all the. Why would someone do both, right? I mean, it's you mean both
Well,
in one, right? Both in one.
let me explain because I'm actually we're considering a project like that. A customer has a huge amount of information where a customer would want answers about. Let's say let's assume it's a bank, just for the it's not a bank, but for argument's sake, it's a bank, and the customer starts asking questions to the chatbot about a mortgage advice. And the bank, of course, has mortgages and gives mortgage advice. Um, and the customer says, "Oh, how much is mortgage advice?" And of course, the price gets lifted. And oh, you want the full document? You can also download the document. Um, and then this is like a trigger, like a commercial trigger. You should ask, okay,
Okay.
which an LLM is not going to ask unless you tell them if if it's in this direction on a certain topic. You need to ask, would you like more information or speak to a person or whatever? Ask the commercial question, which is important. And then if the customer says, "Oh yeah, I would like to make an appointment for a free orientation or start the process," then you could lead them to a scripted bot where you have exactly you only ask the information you need, because that's the other problem. You get information not that the LLM tells you to get, but that the process tells you to get, which is in
Hmm.
legal boundaries. You can explain why you get the information, why you need the information, because you also need to do that, and then structure it in a good way so that it lands
No,
very well
that's
in your CRM.
I
You
see.
need,
Yeah, I see
sorry,
where you're coming from. I think in terms of cost and speed, that you can do that. Yes,
yes.
100%. But in terms of scripted chatbot, that has been possible before as well. So you can do it
Well,
also in one. But in terms of cost, in terms of speeding up a kind of a interaction, or let's say interference between the scripted bot and the human, and yeah, you can do that. Why not? I would only just consider the cost, let's say, and time to market thing, which can be also valuable. But in the end of the day, you're not asking any sensitive data to this GenAI chatbot either, right? So
that's a way to keep it separate.
I got it.
And
Yep.
you tell the customer in advance, no, if there's a certain
If it's
process.
integrated pretty well, and if the customer experience is good, and also the latency is an issue, right? We didn't spoke about latency. It's a good thing. Yeah, why not?
Do you also test for latency in your
Yeah,
program?
we do test in the latency, but that's not our, like, that would be standard testing, right? We test against the latest attacks. We can tell you about the latency, and that's also another issue why we also stepped away from the guardrails or implementing any kind of lifetime protection, because anyone who's telling you currently who has zero latency on the chatbot with implemented protection is lying. And that's a massive issue. If I wait more than zero point 0.3 seconds on a chatbot to get a response or an output, that's a very bad customer experience. So yeah, we're working on that. But yeah, that's also one of the issues. And then if you have low latency, then you maybe not have the best accuracy, or you don't have the best cost structure, right? So there's always something you're losing in that security manner. But again, the demand is high, so a lot of companies and are jumping. And what is also more interesting, and beside the competition you mentioned, is that the big four, that Microsoft, Google is jumping on that. We are having consultancy agents jumping on that, and we are having standard cloud security companies like Palo Alto, Wiz, Zscaler doing something in that space. So it's unbelievable, right? So everyone will jump on that very soon.
Are you worried about that?
No, I like that, because at the end of the day, it's about skill set, as I said in the beginning, or maybe not really mentioned it in detail. Why we're changing the way how security has been done. Because look at our team, we don't have any security engineer or pen tester. We have only AI people who understand algorithms, who understand mathematics, who have been doing their PhDs and master thesis in that. So you need to understand how the algorithm works in order to define the adversarial text and multi-step approach. multi-step attack approach what we have in our intelligence. So that's the way how security will be done in the future, because that's why, that's AI security basically. And therefore, all the companies, even the bigger companies, they're fighting very hard for talent. I just spoke recently to an investor, and he said, "Yeah, we got Zuckerberg." I said, "But what does that mean?" Yeah, we had a guy who was had an offer from us doing here responsible for AI for 300K euros per year, and it was really a very tough offer for them and very expensive one. And then basically Mark Zuckerberg called him up and gave him $1 million per year in order to move him to Silicon Valley. And that's what happens currently. So everyone, and that's the most highest paid jobs in the world. And if I look at our competition also out of the valley, they're paying AI engineers up to 250K for building their platforms. So that's the truth. Yeah.
And you think that's viable for the long term?
What do you mean?
Well, of course, now there's a shortage of this type of engineer or developer. But the shortage is also a bit artificial, because everybody's jumping on the wagon. Everybody, it's being hyped. And we've seen also in COVID time, a lot of startups have hired too many people, and a lot of companies, not only startups, because the government was paying anyway. So, there's no risk involved. And now you see slowly that they're shedding
But
people.
there is not enough people. Like we are having currently with 2 universities, around 25 PhDs and master theses on that topic, where we are also doing some hidden stuff and try to be also the first adopters in the market of those things, and not only attacks but also solving the attacks problem. It's a lack of skills, as you said, a lack of labor, a lack of people, because that will take time. So I always compared this era to the cloud era when I think back in 2006, when there was the World Cup in Germany and the new iPhone was launched. And also it came with the cloud era, and everyone was saying, cloud security, why would you need that? And adoption of cloud is expensive. We don't have the skills yet. Let's take some time. Today, it's more or less commodity, right? Today, everyone is using cloud services, me and you.
They don't even know.
They don't even know exactly. And it's same, at least the same. And that's the minimum will happen to GenAI. Minimum. So it's not a hype. It's already in production. It's already used. People are doing work with it. There will be course studies changing, university degrees changing. So I believe it's just the beginning and one of the beginning years. And compared to cloud back 15 years ago, I would say even more, almost 20 years ago.
No, what I didn't mean it was a hype per se, as it's not useful. It's very useful, and I believe in it making big changes. But I mean the hype in the sense that I wouldn't say every CEO, but a lot of CEOs are calling, we need to have AI, and that's so general, or Gen AI, without knowing what it could do, what the risks are, what the costs are, because the costs of doing something, they're high.
Because it's layer 2 and layer 3. I mean, I don't want to hijack you because it's layer 3. I spoke to all the chatbot owners last week and they say, we understand that there's something coming up. But there is currently no regulation which is prohibiting us from putting those things in production, right? It's mentioned the certificates and the stamps, because EU AI Act is for the end user only relevant in 2 years. For now, it's only relevant for the vendors, mostly. Yeah. So, and then they said, it's layer 2 or layer 3. It's always like that. So that's why Gen AI.
Stupid way of approaching it.
I know, but that's what they say.
I know. It's stupid.
Yeah. So that's why we have differences in cultures and countries and nations and economies, and some of them are just moving faster and some of them not. That's I think what needs to happen, and maybe also going back to the source of the problem, I mentioned Air Canada and we had Chevrolet. Back in the beginnings, we had Chevrolet Sage Chatbot, where basically Chevrolet was offering, was also jailbreaked, was offering the Chevy Tahoe for $1 based on a prompt injection, and then also mentioning Tesla 3 model, competition filtration. So I believe we need things to happen in the market, and then you get back to the source of the problem, and then when people react. It's always like it. I've been working in cybersecurity the last 2.5 years. People are reacting when there is a break and when there is a cyber attack, and when they lose money, and when they lose data, and then they act very fast, and then they spend a lot of money, which could have done before with less money, with less effort, and with less stress. And that's basically it.
So, where what is the origin of that problem? Because basically you're saying, okay, only after a problem occurs, then all of a sudden we wake up and say, oh, we need to do stuff. And still not everybody wakes up. So what is the problem? The root cause of that problem?
Oof. I would
Is that
say economic. It's related to again to cost. Everything is again related to cost, and I would say even the know-how and the mindset of the people. But what I would even say more of cost, because currently we don't see fully adopted budgets for Gen AI security. I must say there are some budgets, but mostly out of US, and because again the adoption is faster. And how corporates work is that there's an allocated budget for solving specific things, and we just don't see it currently. I don't see it currently in the European Union. It's more or less, okay, let's test it, let's see it, let's implement it, and then they tweak it out of the security budget and tweak it out of the pen testing budget, but it's not defined yet. And that's how corporate works, basically, right? It needs to be on the top of the agenda of the C-level. Call it corporate vision. And but yeah, the good thing is that security overall is a huge on the agenda. So security, I even say that companies tend to spend even more on security than even on building applications at all. Right? The
yeah,
production of a chatbot is maybe not that costly compared to the security measures you will later on have implemented. Specifically when you're dealing with customer data, with payments, third-party integrations, and wow. So and getting fined, of course, for that.
and that will happen. But I want to go back to the point you were making. You said that you think the main thing is cost. I'm not sure I agree 100%. I think before the cost, I understand it is a problem. Once they know what it costs, then they say, "Oh, that is a lot of money." But I think there's this knowledge gap
Yeah,
on all
sure.
levels of. You said skills, not so much skills, but it's actually knowing what AI is, what it can do, how it can cause trouble, um, within legal boundaries or not. That doesn't even matter. And I think that is a far bigger problem. They're looking at something, they see a chatbot, they see amazing things, but they forget they should see also other things that are
100%,
related to that,
100%.
and the long term risk. And I miss that.
Yeah, you're right. It's crazy. Like, I mean, speaking also to people like in the who are many years in the business and they use prompting like crazy for emails and for campaigns and I wonder like why they don't think about security and safety and so things like it's I think it's in the back of the head of some people, but they're just putting it away. And it's also education, as you said, education. So we do a lot of consulting work. We do travel a lot of our companies and present and stuff. I think we all together need to have education because it can take over the world quickly. It took over the world quickly, but the problems will get only bigger because I got sometimes challenged and by some yeah even the potential customers or let's say marketers and say, hey, but okay, you have this product now and doing this now, but what's next? I said, but come on, you will have robots having Gen AI in it, and you will have multimodal, you have plugins, you will have voice bots, you have audio, video bots, right? Imagine the amount of toxicity and the amount of malicious content that can be inherited through those things instead of just text to text, right? And then again, when you do pen test the voice bot, you always need to check the input and the output, right? It goes always back again to the same technique we are using right now. So the attack surface is currently, I would say, 5% of the world potential attack surface. What we can rank.
But if you think about that, how do we get the conversation design community and the end customers? How do we get them to put on these chatbot security glasses and understanding more? Like let's assume like X-ray glasses and have a look at their product and say, oh, I see all these things that I otherwise wouldn't see. How do we solve that knowledge gap? Because
I think those one who know and who are building something that are very smart, they know that. They know that what's possible. I saw it again last week and the weeks before at RSA in San Francisco, the biggest security event. The thing is like like we are talking about 0.05% of the world's population. We're speaking about like 50,000 people in the world currently knowing about those problems. Yeah. So I don't know how much of that is of the population, but yet can be 0.0. But anyway, so it's just a matter of time, and it's the nature of the process that it needs time that other people, C-level people, CEOs, MDs, customers will emphasize on those topics. And then again, it's all about spread the word, and it's all about seeing what will happen. But we cannot stop the attackers from doing some harmful things while you're enabling them. It's impossible, I would
No, I
say.
understand that, but
And currently, even just finalizing it, we don't even say that we can protect the chatbot 100%. No one can do that.
no,
It's just
and
about
tech evolves.
mitigating. It's about mitigating the risk. So, and if you can do 90% plus instead of 50%, 60%, I think it's an improvement. Yeah.
And we know it's a cat and mouse game, so it's
Yeah.
there's always the cat, and the mouse finds ways to run faster or hide better.
Yeah.
So, but I would love to find a way to speed things up in terms of the knowledge dispersal. First of all, that's what Botcasters is about. But
Yeah.
also that the people that are involved, especially if you talk about the C-level people, we know the budgeting cycles. There's, around this summer, they'll start budgeting for next year. And if you want to do something on chatbot security next year, you need to budget it, get it
Yeah.
on the table, the topic this
Yeah.
year. Otherwise, sorry, not enough. You know the drill. You mentioned it before.
No, everyone who's listening to us now, I think I can only offer from my side and from our side to do kind of a 10, 20 tests for them based on the UI or the API, just to show them what's possible without any, let's say, legal binding stuff, just to show what's happening and what's possible with our automated tool. And we have also a private restricted beta version where we can give access to the people who are listening to today. And I would love to get feedback and also shaping our product, but that's the starting point, right? We need to educate, enable, use it, and then see what's possible, right? Because always when a human eye sees what's possible, then it believes it, right? Spoken words are sometimes, and currently specifically in that era today, we're living a lot of podcasts, webinars, a lot of content, especially now with Gen AI content. So I still don't post any Gen AI content, even not on LinkedIn or emails. I strictly go without it because I want to have this human spice in it, with my own words. And I still believe we should stick to that. But what I can offer from our side is just basically doing those tests specifically on Gen AI chatbots. Yeah.
And maybe we should also consider doing something to bring that knowledge to share it. But let's discuss that off camera and see if we can figure out a way to help the community further and understand the risks and mitigate them. That's one thing. If you would have an advice or tips or ideas for C-level people on one end, conversation design teams on the other end, where do they start?
Oh, I mean, I would even say they should communicate together. So specifically concerning conversational AI teams, product teams with security, I feel there is a lack of communication often between those teams because I've seen it. And where the CISO and the teams think, okay, there is a risk, while the AI engineer, product engineer say, oh, it's safe, it's cool, no one will harm our chatbot. I think the communication should be better between those teams. And we need to put it on the C-level agenda with that. So the CISO in that manner plays a crucial role, I would even say, and that's the starting point. And what should they do? I think they should put and establish kind of an LLM security or GenAI security pathway, or let's say an entity, or let's say a team, or at least one people in the group, in order to start doing that, right? Because what we've seen it, and I can tell you that, is leading CPaaS providers and some leading technology companies like Salesforce already having researchers and people who are just analyzing and researching about GenAI securities within the space, and they are completely unbiased, independent, and don't work with vendors. They just do something in-house. But later, you as a smaller company, maybe you can still choose a vendor to work with, but you need to enable at least a point of contact or a person inside of the company that can handle those things. Ideally, someone who will connect the security team and the AI team. Yeah.
And it would, of course, be extremely cool if a CEO asked the team before deployment of a new chatbot and asked the question, has the chatbot been splixed, right?
Yeah, that would be nice. So what I see also, and maybe one anecdote out of the German market, they always look. There's a newspaper called Heise.de, and they look at this newspaper, how many companies have been attacked, what kind of attacks had happened, and then the CEO reads this newspaper in the morning in the breakfast and says to his security people, "Hey, did you thought about I don't know SSL inspection, right?" That was before, like in the cloud security, and then they we need to do something about it. So it's always you would wonder how many companies still work on that principle. So that's why I think it's a matter of time when GenAI security will occur also on those websites, and then the running game begins. Yeah, yeah. So
Thank you very much, Christian or Chris.
Darren, yeah,
I,
thanks.
I really enjoyed it, and I think I learned a lot today. And I think the listeners and viewers probably understand a little bit better what the inherent risks are and what they should or could do about it. At least what process to follow in order to mitigate those eventually. And doing it manually is probably not a good idea. Not to
Yep.
sell any product, but just to understand that the sheer volume it's going to prohibit you of innovating and having a short time to market, and probably missing stuff that shouldn't be in there and will be in there. Thank you very much, and we'll off camera we'll discuss see how we can share more knowledge, if we can figure out a way to do that and to educate people. And for now, wish you really good luck with the company and the software,
Thank you.
and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Darren. All the best, and thank you for your for having me today here.
My pleasure. Bye bye.